One of the most incomprehensible passages in the Exodus narrative occurs at the beginning of this week's Parashat Beshalach. In it, God says that He's not taking the children of Israel the short way to the land, by way of the land of the Philistines, which was an ancient highway leading directly from Egypt to Israel. Rather, He was going to take them the long way because the short way was close by. Commentators tried to explain this. Some stated that the Israelites, still tied in their mentality to slavery, if they encountered difficulties, would turn back if it was too easy to do so. Others suggested that 40 years in the desert were needed to learn and internalize the Torah that they were about to receive, and therefore, if they'd gone too quickly into the land, they would have quickly abandoned the Torah. The passage then goes on to state that the children of Israel weren't ready for war. In other words, if they encountered difficulties and obstacles along the way, they might turn back. But it says also that they were chamushim when they came out of Egypt, which usually means that they were armed. Well, if they were armed and prepared for war, why not go by way of the Philistines, when in fact they had to fight wars anyway? At the end of this parsha, they had to fight against the desert Amalekites in order to get by. So this also makes no sense. The 4th century collection of Midrashim, the Mechilta, and also a later collection of Midrashim, Tanhuma, found another meaning in chamushim. They claimed that it was tied to the root chet mem shin, meaning chamesh, or 5. Accordingly, they claimed that only 1/5 of the Israelites came out of Egypt. Surprised? Well, the Midrash continues. Some say it was only 1 out of 50. Some say 1 out of 500. Even 1 out of 5,000. What were our sages thinking? Why did only 1/5 of the Jews come out of Egypt? Well, if the Israelites, they followed the pattern of Jewish communities throughout the ages, that despite persecution, very often remained where they were. Yet, if only 1 out of 50 or 1 out of 500 came out, what would that imply? That only a few choose to go out, and only a few choose to go by way of Mount Sinai and the arduous journey to the land of Israel. Perhaps redemption, these sages are implying, is really the province of a very few people. The same Midrash then continues with something even more radical. It claims that most of the Jews died in Egypt. Now the Israelites took advantage of the plague of darkness to bury them. This is even stranger. Why would so many have to die before redemption was possible? I read this Midrash in light of parallel events that are closer to our times. The state of Israel was established shortly after the majority of European Jewry had been murdered. Is redemption only possible following great catastrophe? Is similar to the enslavement and exodus from Egypt? Is the Shoah and the establishment of the State of Israel an epic event that's going to revolutionize the Jewish people? The question and the answer is still in our hands. Shavua Tov from Schechter.